Hello and welcome to Fine is a Four-Letter Word. My guest today is the one and only Tracy Kay. I'm so excited. Most podcasters probably start by talking to their friends, but I didn't do that. I started with people I didn't know and have now moving to my friends. So yeah, Tracy and I have been friends for like almost, I think it's almost 6 years, at least 5. I know, it's crazy.
7.
7? It was 2015, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. So here we are. But Tracy, like many of my friends, was the inspiration for this podcast. So I'm super excited to have you on my show now and talking about your story.
Thanks. Yeah, this is a great conversation, Lori. This is so valuable to so many people.
So let's start with, what were the values or beliefs that were instilled in you when you were younger?
Well, Lori, I really don't know, to be honest with you. I mean, my mother did a really good job at telling me I could do anything that I wanted. And I had natural dancing abilities, and I had the dream of being a theater dancer, a professional theater dancer, and she encouraged that. And that's probably um, the most wonderful gift anyone could have given me was that. But that being said, life experiences gave me many unconscious beliefs. You know this. We talk about this
Right.
all the time. So I have a lot of unconscious beliefs that I'm just becoming aware of and understanding that they are deep rooted, and I'm trying to get a grip on those and alter those beliefs, understanding that a belief is just a thought that I thought over and over again, and it grooved its way into my brain as a belief. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
it's true.
That's why I ask this question of my guests, because I want to find out what were the beliefs that were instilled in you that are showing up now that maybe or maybe you don't recognize.
Okay.
Because when we're little, we don't have a choice. Like, we don't know any better, so we just accept everything.
Right. We just
And now, and right, so it's contributed, like we've talked about, it's contributed to your outcomes in life.
yeah.
And
So
now that we're aware of what those beliefs might have been, we can change them.
right. So
That's why I'm asking. Yeah.
yeah. So obviously, I take a look at the conditions of my life, and I can break it down into segments. And so let's look at my fitness, right?
Okay.
Personally, I'm extraordinary. I'm extraordinarily fit for age 54. And I know I had to catch myself there. I've got goals for my 55th birthday, so I have 55 on the mind. But
Uh-huh.
uh, so my uncle used to tease me when I was younger for being skinny. And he used to say, "Oh, Tracy, don't go outside. It's windy. The wind will carry you away." Or when I would sit on his lap, and I was literally, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old. When I would sit on his lap, he would tease me for having a bony tushy. He's like, "Oh my gosh, you're so skinny." So I would imagine that went into my psyche because I've always thought of myself as naturally thin. But
Mm-hmm.
and I know when I was 48, preparing for my 50th birthday, um, I was 10 pounds overweight. So 10 pounds overweight for me. So when I graduated high school, I was 108 pounds at 5'4". And so that's what I use as my bar.
And everybody who's listening right now hates you.
I know. For me, that's why I prefaced that, because
I know.
everybody is different and everybody has a different bar. So when I was 18 and I graduated high school, I was working in a theater show, and they weighed me and measured me every week because I was a dancer. I was a professional dancer. So I knew I was 108 pounds, so that was the bar for me. And so I had reached 120 pounds, on my 48th birthday, and I was having a hard time getting out of bed because I felt heavy and sluggish, and I had no muscle definition. And I thought to myself, what happened to me? I had two children, and life got in the way, but I'm fine. I mean, I'm not grossly overweight. I'm fine. I'm
Yeah.
still,
Anyone looking at you would not have guessed that you felt that way.
I looked great in a pair of jeans, but I did not look great in a bikini. And the bottom line was I did not feel great. And you talk about fine to fantastic. Yes, I was fine. But
Right.
the way fine felt was far less than the way I wanted to feel. So, you and I were working together when I was on this journey and I didn't know how to get to where I wanted to go. So, I had to research it. I found a trainer. I flew out to Florida because the woman that I found whose body I adored lived in Florida. So, I flew out there and I trained with her and I learned everything I could about exercising and nutrition. And 6 days a week, 5:30 in the morning, my butt was up and at the gym. And I put in all the work I could to feel really good in my own skin when I turned 50 years old. And I did it. So I did go from fine to fantastic in that one arena. Now because you're
Right.
my friend.
Right. And I want to make the point here that you did the research. Like you didn't feel good, you didn't know what to do, but you did the research to figure it out and then you took the action.
I did. I did.
Cuz a lot of people stay like I don't know what to do and then just stay there.
Right. So I knew if I turned 50 years old feeling badly in my own skin, it was going to be a really awful experience. And I did not want that for my life. I did not want that for myself. So,
Right. So the thought of not taking action was more painful than the taking action.
yes. So that's one area of my life. You know that.
Right. So yeah, so I want to also talk about the beliefs again back to the childhood like what led you to the first let's say 20 years of adulthood. Like that story, tell us a little bit about that, like when you were a dancer and then that transition through not being a dancer anymore.
My mother really, my mother was the reason why I believed that I could be a professional dancer. It was my mother.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, she
And
got
then go ahead.
she got me involved in a dance studio when I was 11, and I really enjoyed it. And um, I was I was the new girl in a more advanced class. So my mother just really supported me and told me I could do it, and I kept doing it. And then I went to high school for the performing arts. And at that time, there was no doubt in my mind that I was going to be a professional dancer and I was going to make my living as a theater dancer. Not a single doubt. And I think my mother is a huge component in that strong knowing. It wasn't even a belief. It was beyond a belief. It was I knew who I was in the world, and I was a theater dancer. So
Right.
after I graduated high school, well, through high school, I was doing community theater, dinner theater, and some professional theater. Like I did the president's inauguration, I did symphony orchestra performances. I was performing, and I had a contract lined up right after high school, and then a contract lined up after that, and after that, and after that, and I did. I went on and I did theater shows. I did national tours, European tours, regional theaters. I did all thing theaters until I hit about, I think I was 31 when I left that industry. And then I had to make a change. I had a new dream of having a family. And then
Right.
I wanted to go and do that. So I would say my subconscious beliefs were instilled in me by my mother to be a dancer.
Right. And the belief that you could do it. And then, as we've talked about in the past, the manifesting of every new job. Like you didn't think about it.
I just did it.
You just opportunities just showed up for you.
I did because I think, you know, looking back, knowing what I know now, Lori, and you can chime in because you and I talk about this all the time. I had no resistance. I had no negative beliefs that were going against what I wanted to do. I was happy. I was authentically living my life. I did not fit into the mold, and my mother supported that. My mother,
Yeah.
my mother never put a mold on me. So I was not. I was. I was in my pond. I was a fish swimming in my pond, and so I was authentically myself, being who I was supposed to be in this world, and I was happy. I was genuinely happy. And that's why I think life just unfolded naturally for me because I was just happy in it.
Yeah. And then, so then when you decided that you wanted to get married and have children, were you doing that because you genuinely wanted that or because you thought that's what you were supposed to do?
So, a combination of things there. I genuinely wanted a family for sure. This was a dream. However, here's where my limiting beliefs tripped me up a little bit. This is hard.
Hmm.
So I believed that in order to have a family and in order to be the right kind of mother that I should be, okay, so here's
Hmm.
my language, that I needed to be grounded. I needed to be in a 9 to 5 lifestyle. So I betrayed who I was as a theater dancer. And part of that is knowing my biorhythms, my natural biorhythms. Um, my natural biorhythms worked perfectly for being a dancer. I woke up around 9 every day. It was a very easy, laid back lifestyle in that when I was performing, my days were pretty much free.
Hmm.
I had to be at the theater before 7:30 p.m. because curtain was up at 8:05 and the show was over at 10:30 and I left the theater at 11 and I was a bit of a homebody so I would usually sometimes go out with the cast afterwards but more times than not I would go home and take a shower and read a book and go to bed. Now, um, that lifestyle fit me so well, but I should all over myself when I wanted to be a mother. So I thought, oh, in order to be a mother, children grow up in a 9 to 5 framework. So I need to force myself into a 9 to 5 mold. I was very much, my older sister calls me a free spirit because I lived out of a suitcase for years and I was uber happy doing that. It felt free and light and airy. I did not have a lot of material possessions. I lived with my girlfriend in Manhattan. It was her apartment. I lived with her. All the furniture was her. All of my belongings could fit into 2 suitcases.
Wow.
So when I decided to get married, I knew I should embrace the 9 to 5 lifestyle. I knew I had to marry a man who already was deep into that 9 to 5 lifestyle because I imposed the role or the responsibility on him to ground me so that I could force myself to fit into that 9 to 5 lifestyle. And here's another thing. Oh God, this is hard.
It's okay.
I'm gonna
It's
share
okay.
that.
I'll just interject here that in the episode that I did with Derek Goldberg, we talked about shedding the shoulds.
Okay, interesting because I didn't
Hmm.
hear that episode, but strangely enough, I have always had a little bit of a self-esteem issue. Go figure. I don't know. I don't know where it came from because my mom did such a good job raising me, um, and giving me. She did everything to give me inner strength.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe because the dancer world was competitive,
Sure.
and I do have some issues about, yeah, I don't want to get into it, but my family, like, we didn't have a really big, beautiful house, and I felt a little embarrassed by my tiny little row home. And my parents were really into their boating passions, and they weren't really into the way the house looks. Like, it just
Mm-hmm.
wasn't their forte.
That wasn't their priority.
It wasn't their priority. Yeah, they
Yeah.
didn't care. So the exterior of the house looked a little shabby, and I was always a little bit embarrassed by that. So it made me feel less than.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back, I'm imagining that this was a factor into me feeling less than. And because of that, I think this is me psychoanalyzing myself.
Right.
My self esteem thought that a man would not really, no man would ever love me for me, exactly as I was. Now, that being said, I did have a turbulent, difficult relationship where I was in love with a man, with a theater actor. Laura, you know this. And
Mm-hmm. Right.
um, I knew he was in love with me, and I didn't understand why things weren't working out with us. He wouldn't commit to me, and I just
So that
didn't.
just fed that
It did.
insecurity.
It did. It fed that insecurity. So when I decided to get married, I was very calculated. I knew I couldn't find a man to love me for me, and I knew a man that I would end up being would have to be a man that would need me in some way. So, and I also wanted a friendship because my previous romantic relationship had really broken my heart in an unhealthy way,
Mm-hmm.
and it devastated me. So I forced myself to marry a, a guy who I had a very loving, harmonious, deep friendship with. And he had a son that he was raising on his own. So I was an instant stepmother. My intentions were pure, but wow, I was I was not up to that task. And
Mm-hmm.
the man that I married was in the insurance industry, and I came from a theater background. And that's two totally different worlds.
Yeah.
Um,
You put it out there into the universe. I want stability.
yeah, yeah.
And it brought it right to you.
I could have found stability, knowing now what I know. I
Sure.
could have found stability with somebody as eccentric as I was. You know,
Right. What this is the whole thing is when we see it when we're looking backwards, not when we're in it.
right. So when I was in it, my lack of self-esteem said I needed to be with somebody that needed me because nobody's going to love me. And I forced myself into a 9 to 5 culture. That was probably the hardest thing for me. I
Mm-hmm.
missed the theater. It was like a part of me had died.
Yeah.
So I was no longer involved in a world of, I'll use the word eccentricity for lack of a better term, but
Mm-hmm.
the theater,
Expression, even.
the theater arts, people are authentically, wildly, deliciously embodied themselves, right?
Yeah.
And it's just so accepted, and they're so creative. So it is this delicious combination to create for outside of the box being, living, and thinking. And I loved that so much. And so I forfeited that to marry somebody who was more traditional, more inside the box, square peg who fit in a square hole.
Mm-hmm.
We follow the traditional way of life in Northern Virginia, meaning get up in the morning, do your Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 job, clock in, clock out, take home your paycheck, go home.
How long were you in this situation before you realized this is not really working for me?
It was a while. Now, I was married for 3 years when I knew that I was deeply depressed. And I thought it was something wrong with me.
Mm.
And then I started soul searching to figure out what I was doing wrong, why I was sad. The challenges of motherhood were difficult. I also had a stepson that was difficult. I was insanely sleep deprived. That was the hardest thing of my life. I just had so many challenges. And looking back, I can now see that, Einstein's quote, if you ask a fish to climb a tree, it will spend its whole life thinking it's stupid.
Yeah.
I was suddenly a fish trying to climb a tree. I was living a life that wasn't my authentic life.
Right.
And
Right.
instead of recognizing that, like, holy cow, I jumped outside of who I am, trying to become someone that I'm not. I was married. I had a child who I adored. My husband and I were great friends. Um, and I just could not see that I was not being true to myself. So, what I tried to do is I tried to figure out what was wrong with me.
Yeah, this is so common. It's crazy how we try to, like, we take it on as our thing. Like, something must be wrong with me if this situation is not working.
Yeah. So, my sweet husband at the time, I went through a lot of depression, and he was very kind and very patient and did try to help me um, in trying to help me find my inner peace and my inner balance. And
Hmm.
I never quite grasped the concept that when you have peace on the inside and you have self love on the inside and you know who you are on the inside and you know what you want on the inside and you feel the essence of all that, that your outside will just naturally, easily, without effort, materialize to reflect that.
Now, that's something you've only come to understand recently.
Very recently.
So, you were with John for 20 years.
20 years married, I think in total 21 years. Yeah.
Right. Before, so you were in that fine for all of those years until finally you decided that wasn't okay anymore.
Because Lori, on the outside, things looked fine. On
Sure.
the inside, I was far from fine. I wasn't
And
even close to fine.
yeah,
I was in agony. I was in pain. But on the outside, no one no one would have known.
that's what I'm pretty sure a lot of the people listening to us right now are feeling, thinking, and feeling themselves.
Right. So again, it was that 50th birthday
Mm-hmm.
that really jolted me. So I had achieved an outstanding physique, and I showed myself that I could do that, and I was really happy to feel like me again. And I knew I had to keep going. I had to keep moving in the direction of feeling like me. I did
Yeah.
not want to die with any regrets. And I knew the journey was going to be hard, but I had to move in the direction of being my authentic self in the world.
Because again, the fear of not being it was greater than the fear of staying where you were.
Yes, exactly. And the fear was practically debilitating. The fear um, felt to me like if you're in a burning house and there's fire behind you, so you
Mm-hmm.
can't go behind you, and in front of you there are flames that are 6 feet deep, but past that 6 foot wall of flames was the outside of your house. That was your safe haven. I had to run through the flames. To me, the flames were fear. It was the fear. I had to run really fast to get
Yeah.
through the fear to get me outside of the fire so that I
The
could,
fear being the fear of leaving the marriage.
the fear of leaving the marriage.
Yeah. Okay.
I was terrified. I mean, terrified.
Yeah.
Once I had made the decision, I knew I had to make the next decision, next decision, next decision. I needed that momentum.
Like a snowball.
Yeah, I needed to make decisions really fast, and I needed to make it happen fast because the fear was so overwhelming that I had to move through it as quickly as I could. Because if I didn't, I may have regressed and gone back. I may have gone back, and I
Yeah.
moved forward.
And so what's it like now on the other side,
So,
outside the flames?
so I'm still adjusting. It's been a year and a half since I made those rapid fire decisions. And the last year and a half has been filled with very high highs and very high highs, but coupled with some lows.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah. And that's just life in general.
it was a psychological adjustment. My heartstrings with my daughter, I sobbed on the phone to you at least a dozen times.
Yeah.
My daughters, my daughters, my daughters, my daughters.
Mm-hmm.
That was the hardest thing, was letting them go. And then,
And just to clarify for the listeners who don't know the story, they stayed living in the house and you left, but they're still your daughters. There's nothing, they didn't go anywhere.
and they're ages 17 and 20 right now. And I just had Leslie out. We were just driving for a few hours and we went to the mall and we got Chick-fil-A and yeah. But it was hard because I was a stay-at-home mom for the first 6 years of their lives. And I was their full-time mom, 24/7, all hands on deck with me. That was my
Yeah.
that was my priority. That was my dream. And so my ex-husband and I decided with a divorce mediator that it was in the best interest of everyone for him to stay in the house. He was running a business out of the house. It had a backyard for his 3 dogs. It was near the hiking trails for him and his 3 dogs. And the girls were settled there. So we had decided that I was going to move out. I moved 7 minutes away.
Mm-hmm.
Condo. They have a key. They come and go as they please. But that was the hard part. And
Yeah.
in addition to my heart having to adjust to a different kind of relationship with my young women daughters,
Mm-hmm.
I had to learn, this is crazy, but hey, I had no more health insurance. What the heck? How do you buy health insurance? Hey, I had no more car insurance. Car insurance? I got to research that. I got to figure that out.
Right. Some practical things here.
Smart TV, Wi-Fi. Okay. How do you set up Wi-Fi? Okay, I learned that. And it was funny because I was telling my 20-year-old all of this like last week, and she goes, "Oh, Mom, and you learned it's not that hard, right?"
Right.
Yeah, but initially I was a deer in headlights. I was terrified of these things because these are things that my ex-husband always took care of.
Right.
He did
Right.
it.
And now you know how to do them.
Now it's nothing. Now I got it. And I have learned that this is my biggest lesson. When you don't have the answers, someone around you does.
Oh, that is gold right there.
My biggest lesson. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I don't have the answers, someone around me does. And sometimes it's a stranger. Sometimes it's the guy in the tow truck. When my car doesn't start and I'm like, oh crap, what do I do now when your car doesn't start? I call my ex-husband. I don't know how to deal with this. So I'm like, oh God. So tow truck guy comes, he's like, okay, let me do a check on your battery, and let me check your alternator. And let's get you over to the service center, make sure they run diagnostics and make sure they check this and make sure they check that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Stranger.
So it's about trusting the universe to bring you in the resources and the answers that you need when you don't have them.
Yeah,
and it happens every single time.
It happens. It happened every time.
That is such an awesome lesson to finish this episode with, but not quite finished because, as I ask every single one of my guests, what is your hype song, the walk-up song, the song that you listen to get you pumped up when you need some extra energy?
Oh my gosh, you're killing me here. There's a song by Ariana Grande that I love, and then what's that song? This is your fight song. This is your flight song. Do you know that song?
Yes.
Who the original singer was? But
yeah. Now it's leaving my head too. I I can hear it in my head though, and we'll put it in the show notes.
Okay. And yeah, and I'm even looking on my playlist that my daughter made for me to see Baby One, Ariana Grande. Here it is. Hang on.
Don't play it.
Can you hear it?
Yes, but turn it off. Because
there we go. That one. I love it.
okay, we'll put a link to it in the show notes.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Tracy Kay.
As always, great conversation. Thank you, Lori.
All right, we'll see you next time on Fine is a 4-letter word.
Yes, it is. Thanks, girlie. Talk to you later.
Don't go anywhere.